Hi everyone, welcome to the Redesigning School Counseling webinar for first year schools. This month we're talking about the preparation for Advisory Council Meeting 5, and the topic of this month is the root cause analysis. This is actually my favorite meeting to facilitate. I just think it's a lot of fun. So we have a lot of tools on the online system, and I think it's going to make your job a lot easier, that I'm kind of excited to share with you. So as a reminder, Debbie Howell on our staff is ready for your follow-up questions. You can either type a question in right now, and she will be able to respond to that as we speak during this live webinar. Or you can follow up with Debbie after the webinar. And her phone number is there on the screen, 812-349-4142, or you can send her an email as well. So real pleased to have Debbie on board, and I think from what we've been hearing about from schools, it's been very helpful to schools to have that feedback. And we really encourage you to think of Debbie as a member of your steering team. That she's there if you just want to bounce an idea off of somebody, or if you want to say, can you take a look at this? Am I going in the right direction here? Or whatever. Just picture Debbie as though she's a member of your team, and please use her. So, okay. Here is the agenda for today's webinar. We'll begin with a quick overview so you can see where this month's topic falls in the process. And then we will be talking about the root cause analysis this month. It will look at what's causing students to make less than desirable choices in each of your priority goals area. We'll do a meeting walkthrough, we'll look at submissions and rubrics, and then we'll look in the online system as well. Okay, so let's begin with that review. First of all, once again, our RSC beliefs. We believe the school counseling programs help students make sound choices in areas that impact academic success. And those sound choices became your goals, and then a subset of those sound choices became your priority goals. So we're coming into this month with your priority goals established. So this is just another way of saying the same thing. We believe that when students are involved with sound guidance activities and sound counseling activities, that they tend to make better choices at schools, and as a result of making those choices, especially in your priority goal areas, as a result of that, student achievement will go up. So when we're designing your program, we just take that pyramid and now we're just going to work it backwards. So we start out with achievement. That was the achievement goals in your school improvement plan. Then we just went backwards to say, okay, for our school to reach our academic goals, what are the choices that kids need to make at each grade level? And you define your student choices or your goals, and then ultimately we're leading to what school counseling programs, guidance initiatives, and counseling initiatives do we need to put in place in order to help students make those choices. But before we can do that, we want to know why aren't students making those choices that we want them to make. And those are your root cause analysis. That is the root cause analysis that comes up with your root causes. Okay. So again, this is just the same thing, but in a little bit more detail. We started in the beginning of the year getting ready. We met with your advisory council to introduce the terminology and kind of the overview of the whole process. We met with them in October to look at your dreams, what your vision is. Met again in November to say, okay, here are all the choices that kids need to make in our building. Then we met in December or January to look at how can we expand the resources that we have available, especially time, so that we can tackle more of those program goals. And we came up with a subset of program goals that are your priority goals. Your priority goals, you may have one, you may have two or three, there's not a lot of them. And those are the things that you're really going to hit hard in your school counseling program next year. So now we want to say, okay, of those priority goals, why aren't kids making those choices? What are the root causes? And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to analyze a whole lot of data to help us understand why kids aren't making the choices that we want them to make. It might be that they don't have the knowledge that they need. It might be that there's personal social stuff getting in the way, or it might be that we haven't given them the opportunities. So we're going to look at the data and figure out why kids aren't making those choices. Okay, then after we know the whys, then next month we'll start figuring out, okay, what are we going to do about that? If kids don't have that knowledge, how do we get it to them? If they have personal or social issues getting in the way, how do we address that? If we're not giving them the opportunities, what do we do about that? How do we give them the opportunities? So next month we'll talk about activities that will address the root causes. And then finally, in the later part of the year, we'll look at preparing those activities for implementation. Okay, so that's the big picture. So far, these are the products that have come out of the process. You have a vision statement, you have program goals, you have a resource expansion plan, hopefully to get you more time or more energy or more funding or whatever it was you need. And then last month we looked at, okay, given who we are and given what we know now, what are our priority goals? What is the one thing that we want our school counseling program to address next year? What one choice? Or what are the 2 or 3 student choices that we really want our school counseling program to address big time next year? So those are the products we have so far. We're coming into this meeting with your 1, 2, or 3 priority goals set, remembering that those priority goals are a subset of the 60 to 70 program goals that you've identified as choices that kids need to make. Okay, so this month we're talking about the root causes. So we're getting ready, we're preparing for Advisory Council Meeting 5. And in that meeting, your council is going to look at a ton of data, and we're going to ask them, what do you think is getting in the way? Why aren't kids making better choices in these 2 areas that we really want to hit hard, or these 3 areas that we really want to hit hard? So to start this out, we're going to send your advisory council a whole bunch of data to look at before they get to your meeting. So the online system will actually send an email to your council for you. You just have to set it up and push the go button. So let's look at what this email is going to say that your advisory council members are going to get. The first paragraph basically says that you're getting ready to look at root causes for each of your priority goals. And then we're defining that root causes are the situations that may be causing our students to not make sound choices in the areas that you identified as your priority goals. So we're kind of setting up the meeting in that first paragraph. We're defining what a root cause is. Then we're reminding people that at our last meeting, here's what we decided our priority goals were. And the computer will actually pull out the root causes that you typed in last month and drop them into this email for you. So whatever you have typed in there as your root causes will appear in the email. So in this case, in the sample here, there are 2 root causes. One is that, there's 2 priority goals. One is that the students, that you're concerned about the percentage of students who have an up-to-date written for your course plan and who are submitting the FAFSA. So 2 priority goals for this school. Then we're going on to further define why students might not be making these choices. They may not have the knowledge they need. There may be a personal social issue that's happening, or they may not have had the opportunity to participate in the guidance activities that they need in order to make those choices. And in the email that appears, the word opportunities, that will be in bold as well. Okay, and so then we're asking people, the instructions are at the bottom there, to save time at our next meeting, please complete the steps listed in the instructions below, and thanks for your help. So here are the instructions that appear below that part. Step 1, we're asking people to open each of the root cause data reports listed below, and at the bottom of the email that I'll show you in a minute, all the reports are listed there and they're linked to what you've entered into the system or your students have entered into the system. So, and then we're kind of giving people just a request. While these reports do not contain any individual student data, they do contain information that some may be considered sensitive and should not be shared publicly. Personally, I don't feel like there's any data here that I wouldn't share publicly. It's all the survey data. It's group data. It's not individual student data. But we just want people to be kind of sensitive about that. So we're just asking folks, let's, not let's not go out and talk about all this data. But if they do, there's nothing here that's FERPA, that wouldn't be FERPA compliant if they do go out and talk about the data, because FERPA only protects individual student data and they will not have any access to individual student data. Okay, so step 2 then says, as you read each of the reports, ask yourself, what could be keeping our students from making the choices that we identified as our priority goals? And when you find an answer, then please write the following on a sticky note. And then this is a possible root cause. So on the sticky notes, they're going to, as they paw through the data, as they dig through all that data, if they find something that they think is getting in the way, they're going to write the priority goal. So if they go back to the top of the email, submitting a FAFSA, so they'd write priority goals, submitting FAFSA, report title, the guidance report, possible root cause, our kids don't know, 87% of the kids don't know what a FAFSA is, and then their initials, so you know who created that sticky note. In the email, we give them some examples of what the sticky notes might look like. And there's an example from each of the 3 different types of root causes. So the first example is a guidance root cause, lack of knowledge. So the priority goal is to increase the percentage who enroll in AP in this case. The data is coming off the guidance report, and the root cause is that 50% of our kids don't know if the school offers college level courses. So it's a knowledge issue. So that may be one sticky note. The next one is information that came off the student assistance report. Same priority goal, increase the percentage who enroll in AP. But in this case, the root cause is 50% of the kids report that stress is interfering with learning. So maybe the issue with enrolling in AP is just that our kids are so stressed out that they're just not doing well at school to begin with, and are having trouble making lots of good choices because of that. And then the last one is an opportunity sticky note, where the advisory council member looked through all the opportunity data in that report, and they found that students in the school don't have the opportunity to take an AP class. So that would be coming from the counselor survey, where the counselors said, that only 20% of the kids had an opportunity to take an AP class when they enrolled at your school, because you don't offer enough sections of AP for everybody's needs. Okay, so those are examples of what the sticky notes are looking like. And then the last step is we're asking everybody, after you've dug through all the data and you've created your sticky notes at home, please bring all those sticky notes to the advisory council meeting. So everybody would just come to that meeting with 10, 12, the things that they have found in the data that would be root causes for why kids aren't making the choices you want them to make. Now, just a little aside, it is possible, instead of having them do this activity at home, to do it in a separate meeting. Sometimes schools find that their council members won't do pre-meeting activities. Most find it works fine, but if you think that may be the case, it is totally possible to have 2 meetings. The first one, you would just have everybody paw through the data and create the sticky notes, and then you'd come back and try to come to consensus at the second meeting. Or you could have one mega long meeting, like a 3 or 4 hour, maybe a workshop, where everybody comes in, you spend the first half of it digging through all the data together, and then the second half of it coming to consensus on what's causing the kids to make less than desirable choices. So lots of different ways to do this. Most schools, though, will use the pre-meeting email just to save everybody some meeting time. So, okay. Then at the bottom of the email, here are the reports that will be linked. So your council members can click on the guidance needs report, that is knowledge. All of that data comes off of the surveys that you gave last spring. So we'll find out, what knowledge kids have that or don't have that might be interfering with their ability to make the choices you want them to make. Then the second report is the student assistance needs. And just as a reminder, those are all questions about where we ask the students to report the personal or social issues that may be interfering with learning. Then the kids have let us know what they think is interfering with their learning. The student opportunities report comes from the counselor survey. And then there's the student group reports. We're not going to actually work with any disaggregated data in your meetings, but we want to give the council members, if they're interested, a chance to really dig down into the data to see which kids are having the issues, which kids don't know this information, or which kids are feeling stressed or whatever. So if they want to go into that level, we give them the link to that so they can dig in. And some community members or parents may want to. If you have a Hispanic community and there's some people that are very interested in being advocates for the Hispanic population, they might want to look at this data to see what choices Hispanic kids are making, what knowledge Hispanic kids have or don't have. Same thing with free and reduced. If there's a group, a person on your council that's really an advocate for low-income families, they may want to dig into that free and reduced data. So everybody has the opportunity to do that, although we're not going to be talking about that at the meeting. So we're going to do that after the meeting. So it will happen. It just won't happen with everybody there. Okay. So that memo goes out online. I'll show you how to set that up in a minute. And then there's an optional paper memo. So if you don't want to send people an email, there's a paper document that you could customize and send out. You'd have to give everybody the URLs to those data reports for your school. So, okay. So let's look at the setup online. I'm just going to jump in that while we're talking about this email. Let me kind of get in there. And I think I'm in Demo School. And I'm going to go to the Processes tab, and I'm going to scroll down to February, identify your root causes, and you can see, we gave you links where you registered for the webinar that you're watching right now, or where you can watch the archive version of the webinar that we are recording right now. And then when we get down to the next steps, we're preparing for that email. So step 3 is update the advisory council email addresses. When you enter this, all of the advisory council members will appear and their email addresses. So we strongly encourage you to just go through and look at those email addresses, make sure they're all, look like they're entered properly, and if not, update any that you need to. It may also kind of give you a clue that you've got some advisory council members that have dropped off your council, and so you need to inactivate them, or maybe you have some new ones that you want to put on before you send out this email. Then in the next step, you're going to send the automated email to the advisory council, so I'll just click on that. And the first thing that you're asked to do is to decide what reports to share. Because most of the people watching this webinar are seeking either the Ask a Ramp Award or the Indiana Gold Star School Counseling Award, I guess we want to tell you that you should check all 3 of these reports. If you're not seeking those awards and the only thing you want to put in is student knowledge, that's fine. But if you're seeking those awards, you'd want to also be having your council look at your personal social issues and the student opportunities. So, okay, and then once you have adjusted that, you need to select the person on your steering team who's deciding that this is what's going to be included. So I'll just go ahead and check those 2. And then I'm going to pretend that I'm Heather Bailey at Demo School, and I'll click Save and go on to step 2. Then we give you another step to verify all the advisory council email addresses. And then finally, in the last step, we give you the part where you are sending out the email. So there's a couple of assurances that we want you to sign first. Check off on. One is, I understand that the advisory council members with valid email addresses are going to receive this message. And if you click that, the message opens up and it shows you exactly what your root causes are that we've pulled out of the online system, and then also which data reports you're creating at the bottom, or you're including at the bottom. So, okay, and then when you're all happy with that, all you have to do is say who's sending the email, in this case, let's say it's Heather Bailey. And when the email comes out, in the from box, it's going to have Heather Bailey's name and Heather Bailey's email address. So it'll appear like it's coming from you, even though our system will be sending it out. And then I forgot this check. I understand the email I'm sending will enable all advisory council members to view group data, no individual student data, for the reports that are checked above. We just want to make sure that you've double-checked, you know what you're doing, and then you'll click the send email to the advisory council, and bingo, all of your advisory council members will have that pre-meeting activity and all the links that they need to complete the activity. So, okay, so that's that. Go back to the processes tab, and we'll get back to the other steps in a minute. And let's go back then to the PowerPoint. Oops, slideshow, code slide. Okay, I think maybe, yeah, went to this and now I'm going to go right back out of it. So now let's look at the walkthrough for this meeting. So I'll open up that PowerPoint. Oh, come on, where are you? Oops, wrong. Okay, so on this one, we are going over the agenda with everybody. So we're talking about root causes and kind of explaining a little intro here for each priority goal today. We want to know, do students lack knowledge, have a personal or social issue that's interfering with learning, or lack opportunities? So we're with your advisory council meeting now. We're pretending I'm standing in front of your advisory council members and we're facilitating this meeting. First thing we're doing is review, and we've been over this so many times, I'm not going to go over it again because you know it by heart probably by now. Okay, and this slide I do think is important to help your advisory council members understand that there's a product that comes out of each discussion. And then you're asking your council any questions before we move into new areas. And then we're talking about this month root causes. So we're setting this up by, explaining, here's the question we're answering today. Why aren't students making sound choices for each of our priority goals? And then we're kind of looking ahead that after we know the root causes, then we'll plan activities next month to address what those root causes are. So reminder, here are our priority goals, and you would type, of course, those into this slide before you post it. As an alternative, you could also print the priority goals report and pass it out to people, either way. And things that we're going to check today is we're going to see, do our students have the knowledge they need to make the decisions we want them to make? Do they have a personal social issue that's interfering with learning? Do they have the opportunities to participate in activities that support high achievement? So we're going to check all three of those things today to see what's getting in the way. So we sent you all, I'm talking to the advisory council now, we sent you all data to look at, and there were three kinds of data. One was data that helped you know if students had the knowledge that they needed. For example, this type of question, I know where to find career interest inventory. I know how to create a high school course plan. So this is knowledge and skills questions. Then you looked at another report that helped you decide if there were personal or social things that were getting in the way of kids making good choices. I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead. There's that slide. So on that report, we looked at personal or social things that may be getting in the way of making good choices. And then we also gave you a report that helped you understand if kids had the opportunity to make those choices. So students have an opportunity to take a career interest inventory at school. Students are provided with an opportunity to create a high school course plan at school. So we're looking at, if I just go back a slide, we're looking at, do they have the knowledge? Do they have the opportunities? And do they have social personal issues that are getting in the way? And so prior to coming to this meeting, you all looked at data that would help us understand that. So today we're doing the root cause analysis. And the process that we're using as an advisory council with the 30 of us that are here is a Delphi consensus building model. There's 3 steps to it. Step 1 we've actually already done. It's to look individually at data, and we did that at home before we got here. Step 2 is to break into small groups and to look at the data and decide as a small group what do we think is getting in the way. And then step 3, we'll have a discussion as a large group about what's getting in the way of students making good choices. So step 1, we did that at home. So we're coming back today then to have a small group task, a small group discussion to begin with. And you've brought with you all kinds of sticky notes. The sticky notes listed at the top of them a priority goal that you felt that student knowledge or opportunities or personal social issues were getting in the way of. Then you wrote what the report was where you found evidence of something that may be getting in the way. And then you're writing what the root cause is. So for example, in this case, priority goal, it was for this school, increase the percentage of graduates who complete an AP course. I found evidence on the guidance report of something that may be interfering with that. And the root cause that I found was students aren't sure if our school offers college level courses. 35% of the kids weren't sure. So that's maybe a root cause about what it explains why kids aren't completing an AP course. And then I put my initials down at the bottom. So all of you have brought those sticky notes today. So what we want to start out with is a small group discussion. And you have at your tables, so we've divided everybody up in the small groups, and then we're explaining to them you have at your tables a set of posters. There's one poster for each priority goal. So we have 3 priority goals. You have 3, each of your small groups is 3 posters in front of you. What we'd like you to do is to place your sticky notes on the appropriate poster in the appropriate column. So for example, one of your posters at the top of it, it says increase the percentage of students who choose to enroll in AP courses. And then there's 3 columns, guidance, student assistance, and opportunities. And so what we would like you to do to begin with is to just walk up to that poster or go, unroll the poster at your table. And if you have any sticky notes that address this priority goal, stick them on that poster. And then unroll the next poster and look at that, that priority goal. And if you have any sticky notes that apply to that poster, stick them on that poster. So everybody gets their sticky notes up, and then we're saying, okay, now we'd like you to discuss each poster. One at a time, one poster at a time, one root cause at a time, what could possibly be getting in the way. And so your small groups are discussing each poster. There will be some really rich discussions in that. I love these discussions. And then you're saying, okay, after you've had some time to talk about it a little bit, as a group, select 1 to 3 possible root causes for each of your posters, for each priority goal. And in a minute, we're going to ask you to report out to a large group. But so kind of get your heads together. The 3 or 4 of you that are sitting there, what do you think the root causes are? Why aren't kids making the choice that we want them to make? So we're giving people some tips. One is that to please not spend time talking about the following. One is why the root cause exists. That can really take the discussion, get it sidetracked, and they'll spend all of their time talking about why a root cause exists. At this point, we don't care about why, we just want to know what's getting in the way. And then the other thing we're suggesting or asking people not to talk about at this point are activities that they could do to address one of the root causes. For example, if they say, well, one of our root causes is that our kids don't even know that AP classes exist, and then someone else might say, oh, at this other school, they do this cool thing. They have an AP activity night, and then all of a sudden people are starting to talk about activities rather than to go on with the root cause discussion. So we're asking them then in tip 2 that if a great activity pops up, to please write that on the activity parking lot. So we want to capture those ideas because we can discuss them next month. We just don't want to talk about it now. So if a activity comes up, what folks can do is just go to the activity parking lot that you have, posted in the room somewhere, and they'll just go up there and say root cause, kids don't know what a AP class is, and then possible activities, and they're just going to jot that down really fast. They've got it parked. Now you can move away from that activity and get back to the root cause discussion. So in the tools for this meeting, you've got a tool you can download that looks like this. That's the parking lot for activities. And then next month, when we are talking about activities, we'll bring this parking lot back. So, okay. We just want to make sure that we've cautioned people about things that can take this discussion aside from the root cause brainstorm that we're trying to have. Okay, one other thing before we get to large group. In terms of the size of your small groups, I would have no more than 5. I usually like to put 4 people into those small groups so that everybody gets engaged in the discussion, and so that everybody gets their ideas out. If you have large small groups, like if you had a group of, if you had 30 people at your meeting and you broke it into 3 groups of 10, with a group of 10, some people aren't going to get to talk. So I think that having small groups is really beneficial. The downside is that you got to make a lot of posters, but I think it's worth the time and effort to do that. So okay, so now we've got all the small group discussions that have happened, and each small group has the reasons that the things that they think are getting in the way of each of your priority goals. So now we're convening the large group back, and we're talking about coming to a large group consensus about the areas that are impacting your priority goals. Okay, so here are the instructions. We're saying for each of the priority goals, we're going to ask each of the small groups, each of your groups, to give a quick report. And here's how it's going to work. We're going to ask each group to share one possible root cause. And as they share the root cause, we'd like your statement to begin with, we believe one root cause for this priority goal might be that. And then they'll finish that statement in 3 to 5 words, just a few number of words, and then we'll move on to the next group. Okay? So we very carefully have created this prompt. This part of the meeting also can get really sidetracked or really slowed down. What tends to happen is someone will say, our group talked about this, and then we talked about that, and then we talked about this, and then we talked about that, and then we came up with this root cause, and we think that the reason that this root cause is really a root cause because, and before you know it, they've spent 15 minutes saying something that could have been said and should have been said maybe in like 30 seconds. So to keep your meeting hopping, we suggest that that you start with this prompt. When I'm facilitating this meeting, I like to always begin, I'll say to a group, we believe one root cause for this priority goal might be that, and then they'll finish the sentence. It just kind of keeps things hopping. And then a couple of notes to people, again, just to keep the meeting moving along, is to only share one concern at a time, or one root cause at a time, to limit their statement to one sentence, and to not include activities that could address the root cause. So we're just, we're wanting to make things really, really quick. Sometimes ahead of time, if I have a friend at the meeting that's participating, I may pull them aside and say, when we get to this part, I'm going to start with your group, and please set the example by going really quick. If the first person goes long, then everybody goes long. So if you can get that first person to get really quick, I think that's helpful. The other thing I try to do as a facilitator is I tend to talk faster at this point, and I tend to talk in littler sentences. So you can see even as I'm explaining this, I'm like, trying to do it fast. So, but it's just how I act, it tends to get the responses to be different as well. So, at any rate, something to think about. Okay. Then we're also saying to people, before we get started, as each root cause is shared, please record it on the appropriate Instagraph prep sheet. So we're saying to folks, we have 3 priority goals. Each of you has 3 copies of this sheet. On the top of one of them, where it says priority goal and has a blank after it right in here, at the top of that one, please write students don't enroll in AP classes. So that's, or whatever your priority goal is. And then, as each group shares their thought about why that may be happening, we're going to ask everybody to write that down. So the first group gets up and they say, students don't enroll in AP because they don't know that AP classes exist. Then you would repeat that statement. Students don't know AP classes exist. And you would say number one, students don't know AP classes exist. And everybody would write that down in number one. I also like to model this as what you're wanting the group to do. So another member of your steering team, you've maybe blown this up into a poster and they are also writing that in. Or you could open this up and project it on the board and type it in so people are seeing you do it. Then the next group goes up and they say their root cause, and you say, okay, number two, students don't think they can afford the AP test. So you're kind of giving all the different reasons that people that students may not be making the choice that you want them to make. Okay, so after you get around one round of all the different groups, then you start again, and each of the tables or each of the groups gets to share another idea, and you keep going until all the ideas are exhausted. Okay, so then we're asking folks, okay, now we're going to try to come to consensus as a large group. What we'd like you to do is, out of all of those possible reasons for why kids aren't choosing to enroll in an AP class or whatever it is, we'd like you to check a third of those answers that you think are having the biggest impact on the kids. So if there's 24 answers there, everybody's going to select 8. If there's 12 answers there, possible root causes, everybody's going to select 4. So they should select a third. Okay, so everybody's done that. And then you're saying to folks, okay, to help us reach consensus, we're going to use this Instagraph. And what will have happened is that there will be an Instagraph, a big poster, that is up on the wall for each of your priority goals. And as the whole group, I'm going to go back, as the whole group was completing this this document at their tables, somebody from your steering team was writing the same thing on the Instagraph over here. Okay? So then we're saying to people, you know those things that you checked on your sheet at your seats? What we'd like you to do is to come up and check it on this poster, or to put a sticky dot. I like to use sticky dots because they're colorful and I think they're fun. But come up and indicate which ones you voted for at your seats. So the other thing you can do here is take a break, so that during break people are coming up to put their sticky dots up while other people are taking a break. So first person comes up, let's say they voted for 3 things, and you asked them to vote for 3 things, so they come up and they indicated that they voted for numbers 1, 3, and 5. And again, people, they don't have to read anything, they just need to know that on this paper they have checked 1, 3, and 5. So when they get up to the poster, they just check 1, 3, and 5. The second person comes up and they check 1, 2, and 3. Third person indicated 1, 3, and 6. Fourth person checked 1, 3, and 6. So you're building the Instagraph this way, and what you'll end up with is just a few of these that have a lot of votes. And so then it makes the consensus discussion really easy. So if I were facilitating this one, I'd be saying, okay, y'all, here's what we said. You think that kids don't enroll in AP courses because they don't know if courses are offered. They don't know the requirements for the honors diploma. Those are the 2 things. We're saying that if we could help kids understand those 2 things, that more kids would enroll in AP. And then everybody probably would agree. And then I'd say, and only one of us said that kids don't know where to find extra help. So maybe that's not so important. Only one said that talked about feeling stressed, so maybe that's not important. You might want to discuss 5 and 6 since they got a couple of votes. And so the discussion that comes up, though, is some people will say, you all should have voted for number 6. And so there might be a little debate, and then you might decide, other people might say, oh yeah, if I had realized that, I would have voted for number 6. So maybe number 6 will get included as well. It just is a great way, an Instagraph is a great way to narrow down the discussion quickly. So, automatically we know 1 and 3 are in, automatically we know 2 and 4 are probably out. So really the only thing that we have to discuss is 5 and 6. So it shortens the discussion. So after you've done that for this priority goal, then we'll go back and we'll do the same thing for a second priority goal. So we'll go back to the small group reports. People will make them this time. Their second paper will have a different priority goal written at the top. People will explain what the possible root causes are, and then they'll check a third, and then we'll go to a different Instagraph, and everybody will do the same thing for a different priority goal. Okay, so then after we've done that for each of the 2 or 3 priority goals, then the question is, can we live with these root causes as the areas that our school counseling program will address next year, and can we support this publicly? So everybody, hopefully, since they designed the whole thing themselves, they're going to say yes to that. So, okay, and then finally, we're asking the council, between now and our next meeting, please be thinking about activities that our school counselors and others like community organizations could do to address these root causes. So what could our counselors do to help kids understand the honors diploma that ends up being one of your root causes? What could what could the PTA do? What could the community foundation do? So we're looking at not only what could the school counselors do, but what could the community do too to help kids understand the information that we need them to understand, or to address a social personal problem that's happening, or to have opportunities that they're not getting just at school. So okay, so that's their homework, and then that's it. Okay, we're going to see, Debbie, if we had questions I need to address, please jump in here now.
Yeah, so we had Mary Reynolds had a question for you on selecting priority goals. I'm going to unmute her and we'll see if she can talk to you.
Okay, great. Mary? I'm not hearing anything.
Okay, let me read the question that she has written.
Okay.
And the question is, what if our advisory, are you ready?
Yeah.
What if our advisory council came up with goals that are not addressed in the needs assessment survey? How would we move forward with these goals which have no real data? Can we use them as priority goals?
Absolutely, you may use them as priority goals, and that is a really good question. It also kind of gives me a clue that your school, that your council had a really rich discussion, which is kind of exciting. So yeah, the information, a lot of the discussions are triggered by the data that's in the surveys that you've looked at, and the some of the data that we provide. But there are a gazillion other things that are maybe less common, that or maybe that we just missed, that are not in the survey. So absolutely, you can come up with a priority goal that's not that doesn't have any database to it in our system. That said, we do need to get data to go with that priority goal. So I would be thinking about, what could you measure, what could you count in order to tell you what percentage of the students are making that choice. So, and you do want to make sure that the priority goal is choice-based, and not the root cause-based, not a guidance indicator or a personal social issue, but it's a choice, like choosing to not fight when they're mad, or choosing to turn in their homework, or choosing to come to school or whatever. So, but if you find one, that's not there, you just need to ask yourself, what could we count? And then you got to figure out a way to count it. What we've had other schools do, is that if it's something like is a personal social thing that we're really just needing to survey kids, they'll do a real quick survey using SurveyMonkey, and make sure you have at least 30 kids randomly selected to take that survey so you can get some baseline data. Or if it's something like the percentage of, if it's something like kids who have participated in a multiplication help group that your school offers that you think you want everybody to choose to do that. You could just, count up the teacher's roster or whatever. So you just have to figure out what are you going to count to get that baseline data. And that's really important because a year from now, we're going to want to collect follow-up data to show that your activities did, worked or didn't work. So we need to get that baseline data. And that's something, that would be a great thing that once you've kind of brainstormed that, to call Debbie and just kind of, touch base with her, and or if need be, Debbie can pull me in, and I'd be happy to look at that as well. But yeah, that's a really good question, and we've designed RSC so that it hits 99% of the things that schools normally come up with, but there's always schools that have a council that goes a different direction and thinks of something we haven't thought about yet. So yeah, good question. So yeah, if you'll type a comment back to Debbie and let us know if that answers your question. If not, I can clarify more. Debbie, anything else?
I don't see anything.
Okay.
Everything looks good.
Okay, well, let's go on then.
And she said, yes, thank you so much.
Okay, good. Okay, so there's one thing that we need you to do after the meeting. So after the meeting, we want to look at the drill down reports to see who the root cause is impacting. It may be impacting all students across the board. Maybe all students don't know what an AP class is, or all students don't know that your school provides extra help for third graders. But it may be a root cause that impacts some students more than others. So for example, it may be a root cause that impacts ninth graders more than it impacts 11th graders, or it impacts boys more than girls, or it impacts Hispanic students more than white students, or free and reduced lunch kids more than paid lunch kids. So we want to try to get a handle on exactly who's being impacted by this root cause, because if you understand that, then you can tweak your activities to really draw in those kids. For example, if you know that your whites are enrolling in AP classes at a greater rate than everybody else, maybe you're having a speaker come in to talk about AP, and we'd want to make sure then that speaker was not a white speaker. That maybe if you're trying to draw in the Hispanic population, that that the speaker is Hispanic. So there's ways that you can tweak your activities to try to close some of those guidance gaps. So we really want to know which kids are making we want to know the degree to which different student groups are being impacted by the root cause. So let's go through and look at an example. So in the reports, and this is the data too that we gave to the council in the email, so they can look at this data if they want to. In the reports, there's first of all a grade level drilled down report, so you can look at specific grades. And then there's the student group drill down, so you can look at gender, race and ethnicity, lunch program enrollment if they're free and reduced lunch. Do they have an IEPs or are they special ed? Have their parents been to college or not? My favorite report to look at is the typical grades. I would really be going all over that report if I were still in the schools. When you look at that data, it is so obvious why kids get D's and F's in your school. They make horrible choices. And you can really target those kids and go after them, which is, I think that would be a great thing. If I were still in the schools, I'd be doing that. And then there's also a tool where you can create a student group. So if you wanted to look at, what did my third grade boys say? What did my third grade Hispanic boys say? You can drill down the data that way as well. It's very interesting. When I get into this data for a school, I mean, I can't get out of it. It's so fascinating, especially when it's your kids and, you care about them, and it's just, this data is just mind-boggling. The other thing I wanted to remind you is that you also have a student list generator. So in your activities later, you could say, give me a list of Hispanic students who say they don't know where to find information about AP. And then you can send an email directly to those kids. So, you've got that ability too to figure out which students answered which questions which ways. And then there's a tool where you can send those kids an email. So, and one other thing about that student list generator is that students have to release the information to you before we can provide it to you. So, but on the survey it says, would you like your counselor to have your responses? Also, when you get to this this section, also wanted to make you aware that the drill down reports are only available to the public if their icons there are in blue. So when the public looks at this, when your advisory council looks at this, they're only going to be able to get drill down reports for for the plans and choices questions and the guidance needs questions. They will not be able to look at the student assistance responses for and compare the Hispanic students to the white students or the boys to the girls or whatever. The counselors can, but the public cannot. And same thing with counselor perceptions. None of that data is ever available to the public. It's only available to the counselor. So, okay. So that's where you get the reports, and then there's one example just that I wanted to show you. So let's say this is from a real school. Let's say that your school's priority goal is to increase the percentage of students who choose to participate in the school's extra help programs. And your current data is that 48% of the kids are participating in the help programs and 66, and you'd like to increase that to 66%. So that's what we're trying to do. So you look through all the data, and in the guidance report, you discover that only 75% of the students report that they know where to find extra help in the school. So 25%, 1 out of 4 kids. Imagine you're walking down the hall, every 4th kid doesn't know where to find extra help in your school. For me, that would be an issue. So now we want to think, well, exactly which kids is it? Is it like across the board? Or is it, do we have specific groups of kids who don't know where to find extra help? So if and actually this is an activity that I did in my own head for the school. I started thinking, okay, if I were the school's counselor, what would I think? And I thought, well, if this were high school, I'd probably think it was the 9th graders who didn't know where to find extra help because they're new to my school, haven't really met with them very many times, and they probably don't know. So I'm going to look at the drill down report for grade level and see if that's the case. Well, I pull up the drill down report and I see, okay, 9th grade, 73% said they know where to find extra help. 75%, 10th grade, 75%, 11th grade, 77, 12th grade. So really there's not a big gap here. I mean, yeah, it's a little bit of a gap, but not like I maybe thought it would have been. So now I'm thinking, okay, there's no gap there. Okay, good. I wonder if there's a gap with my free and reduced lunch students. Sometimes their parents are working 2 jobs, or their parents, don't have a successful background in school themselves, and is there may be something going on with my free and reduced lunch kids? And not to stereotype that all free and reduced lunch students have that situation, but it might be just something that I wanted to check on. So I look at that, and I find that free and reduced lunch, 71% of the kids said they know where to find extra help. 79% of my paid lunch kids do. So it's a little bit of a discrepancy there, but not a lot. So now I'm thinking, I wonder if the kids who get D's and F's on report cards know where to find extra help. So I pull up that drill down report and look at the difference there. Kids who get A's and B's, 85% of them reported that they know where to find the extra help. Kids who get D's and F's, only 9% of them said they know where to find extra help. And then we give you the raw numbers. So there's 35 kids who get D's and F's in the school, and 9 of them said they know where to find help. 15% of them said no, and 11 of them weren't sure. So I've got 26 kids out of the 35 that report getting D's and F's that don't know where to find extra help. So, now I can think about, well, how am I going to tweak my guidance activities so I'm reaching those DF kids? And it may be that you use the student list generator to find out who those 26 kids are, and you're doing some kind of, direct emails to those kids, or at least you're making a point when those kids come into your office for their annual scheduling appointments or whatever, that you're going to say to those kids, don't forget we have extra help, and letting them know where it is. Maybe that you communicate with their parents. You send them, you can use our database to create mailing labels. And so you're sending them a letter to, or calling them on the phone. We've got phone numbers in there too, so that you're talking with their parents about where to find extra help. Yeah, there's just all kinds of stuff that you can do. So we definitely want you, once you know what the root causes are, to dig into those drill down reports to find out which groups of students are having the root cause impact them. Is it the same across the board, or is there a group of students that you should be focusing your activities on, tweaking those activities so that you reach those kids? So, okay. Like in this case, I'm kind of getting wordy here, but in this case, I'm kind of thinking, normally I would be talking about extra help programs when I brought all of my students into a large group presentation, or maybe the principal does at the beginning of school. Chances are your DF students are kind of zoned out in those meetings. So how can I, maybe talking about extra help programs in large group isn't good for reaching those DNF kids. Maybe we need to say that to those kids individually. So yeah, so it's just kind of, how does this data help you to think about the design of your guidance activities or your counseling activities? So, okay. So this month's submissions, there are a couple things you're going to submit. One is your root causes, and there's two rubric guidance on that. One is we want to make sure that there's one or more root cause for each priority goal, and the type of root cause is indicated for each of the root causes, and I'll show you how to do that in a sec. And then the other one is the minutes, and those are the same rubric items that we've used in the past. So one other thing that we want you to be thinking about, remember that next month we're going to be brainstorming activities for each of your root causes. If you have 99 root causes, you're going to be creating significant activities to impact each of those root causes. So we don't want to kind of get overextended here. If you've got 3 priority goals, maybe each of those priority goals has 2 or 3 root causes, the biggest root causes. That may be manageable as you're designing your activities. So just kind of be thinking ahead that we want to narrow down those root causes so that they fit within the time constraints that you have, and so that we're prioritizing the root causes so you hit just the biggest ones. So, okay. Let me go into the system then, and then we'll check to see what other questions we have. Okay, so back into the system, I'm going to scroll down to February, and we sent the email to the council. We've conducted the advisory council meeting. Of course, this icon will go to the manual that gives you all of your resources for that. I think we've touched on all of them. Then you will enter your root causes, and I'm just going to click on that and show you how that works. So we want to enter root causes for each of your priority goals. So the system has pulled the root causes that you put in last month. So you've got to have your root causes in first. And it's listed them here. We've been talking about AP, so let's just jump down to the second one. Have taken or plan to take an AP course in high school. That was one of the root causes. Not enough kids are doing that. So we're going to, so that's a choice that not enough kids are making. So we're going to go to the add a root cause, and the root cause might be that students don't know what an AP course is. And then we would check that this is a student guidance because it's a lack of knowledge, and then I'm going to save. And then as soon as I've saved that, it's popped it up as a root cause. I can add another root cause. I can put one that we do not offer enough sections of AP for all students who wish to take an AP course. That is an opportunity, and then I've got that one in there. And then I just add one more. Students report that they are worried that stress that AP, that taking an AP course will cause stress. And so now we're dealing with they're worried about something, so we've got a social personal thing that's interfering with their learning, and so we save that. Okay, so that's how you put them in. It's really easy. Just put it in your own words and get it in there. Remember, though, that what you write here will appear on reports, so we want to make sure that that's concise and very, very clearly put. So, okay, so we've entered the root causes in. And oops, go back to the process page. Remember, anytime you get lost in the system, just click process page and you can scroll down. And then, so I've entered the root causes, I've entered the meeting minutes, review the rubric items, and then don't forget to send Debbie an email letting her know that you're ready for her to review these submissions. So, okay, I think that's it. Debbie, any questions that have popped up?
No, I think everybody seems to be well informed.
Okay, sounds good. So, I always like to end with this, so we'll end with it again. Don't forget that you make a difference in the lives of young people, and please call Debbie if you get stuck or you just want to bounce an idea off of her. Just, view her as a member of your steering team. Okay, that's it. We'll close this webinar then and look forward to seeing everybody next month. Thanks so much, everyone.